Hey everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. And for those of you that are watching this later, thanks so much for taking the time. And we're going to try to keep this as brief as possible because I know your guys' time is pretty valuable. So we're going to just dive right into it. Today we're going to be talking about the brand new migraine abortive supplement MGR, which I'm super excited about because we've been playing around with different preventatives and things in our office, and the speed at which we're seeing MGR eliminate migraines once they start is pretty amazing, actually. So I'm really excited about that. And then we're going to review the formula of MQ7 really briefly for those of you that aren't familiar with it, because the reason I'm really excited is that with MGR and with MQ7, you now have a wildly comprehensive migraine management protocol for the nutritional side of it. So it makes it really simple. I pulled from all the research, everything that's out there is basically in these products. So that's super duper exciting. So for those of you that aren't familiar with me, I am the owner of ImagineX Functional Neurology. Our specialties are migraine, concussion, and dizziness, mainly migraine. That's most of what we do. This is our office in Santa Barbara. We also have an office in Beverly Hills, and we've been doing this for quite a while. And the reason I'm even got interested in the supplement side of it is I also put together and taught the postdoctorate program on mastering migraine. And it painstakingly made me go through all of the literature on migraine and what supplements are working, the nutritional side of it. And fortunately enough, there was a company up in Oregon that I was already using some of their products and liked them, and just said, "Hey guys, is there any way you could just kind of put all this together so we're not having to give these poor patients 50 different things?" And after about 2 years, we got it figured out, and that's kind of how this started. So really excited for that, because all this training and this clinical knowledge that we've been instilling in other doctors and I've been using, we're now condensing into a couple simple, easy to use products. And I explain this a little bit more in my book as well. So first thing I want to talk about, because I think this speaks to the broadness and the desire for people to get help, is how prevalent migraine is. All right. It's the sixth common cause of disability on the planet, but when you combine migraine with medication overuse headache, which is almost entirely from migraine, it becomes the second leading cause of disability in people under 50. So besides low back pain, there's nothing keeping people down more than migraine. All right. And they're looking for solutions. I talked to 3 people this morning that said, "I feel like I've done everything, I've been everywhere, and I'm still suffering." So there's so many people that need help with this. And in the US alone, so those of you in the United States, there's almost 40 million people that are having migraine, and over 4 million that are chronic. And chronic means more than 15 a month. So I can tell you right now, if you have 20 migraines a month, even if you only get down to 4 a month, which is now 1 a week, that is a wild change to their lifestyle. All right. So the exciting thing with what we're doing is it allows these people to have a non-pharmaceutical answer to some of the problems that they deal with. Like, what do I do when I get a headache? How do I stop from getting them? What do I do to prevent? All of that is taken care of with these products. So the annual cost for headaches, and specifically migraine, is closer to about the 8,000 range for most people. In the chronic side of it, episodic means every once in a while. You're still talking 2,500, 3,000 bucks a year, and that's including loss of ability to work, the visits to the emergency room, medications, all that kind of stuff. All right. So personally, the annual all cost, everything considered for the top 25, so that's the people having the most migraines, is about $13,000. Okay. For those that have tried more than 2 preventative medications, you're talking almost 20 grand. So these people are throwing way too much money at a condition that's causing them to be debilitated. All right, that's why I'm so excited about this, and I want this to be out everywhere. So 2 or 3 slides on migraine, and then this will make everything kind of worth it. So hang with me here just for a few slides. Really important to understand that migraine ultimately is a disruption with the genetic code that tells the ion channels how to work, whether it's calcium, potassium, sodium, magnesium. It doesn't matter. They found over 50 different genes that are associated with migraine. All of them, every one of them, has to do with ionic transport, right? So ions are supposed to let ions, or the passage of ions, in and out of the cell. What that does is it helps to mediate cell excitability. So it should be negative inside the cell and it should be positive outside the cell. If you have a difficulty or a genetic defect that does not allow the cell to regulate its internal environment, you now get a cell that gets closer to threshold. It gets less negative. When that happens, it becomes hyperexcitable and it's going to start firing off. It's going to start fatiguing and causing symptoms. This is ultimately what happens in migraine. And so anything that can reduce that potential is going to reduce your chances of migraine, whether that's emotional stressors, physical stressors, in this case, nutritional stressors. All of those things contribute to how stable these neurons are going to be. And modulating these ion channels and the amelioration of neuronal hyperexcitability has been a hot topic for medications recently. The problem is a lot of these prophylactic drugs, they don't target the areas that are specific for migraine, they target the whole brain. And so the most common thing I hear is people on, Topamax, for example, they call it Dopamax because it just makes them feel like they can't do anything, and they feel like they're just slower than they should be. And that's because it reduces that excitability of the whole brain, not just the areas that are hyperexcitable. So, what does that mean for migraine? Well, we have had all these different theories for years and years, but at this point, we can pretty much say that it is a purely neuronal disorder that has all these other concomitants. So, yes, there are absolutely vascular components, but that's not the cause of migraine. All right, it's definitely a neuronal disorder. And so, the brains of these migraine patients are different than brains of people that don't get migraine. And so the way I describe it is kind of like a bucket. Regardless of where the dysfunction is in the brain, whether it's vestibular nuclei for vestibular migraine, the occipital lobe for ocular migraines, whether it's trigeminal area, midbrain stem for traditional migraine, wherever it is, that area is like a bucket. And depending on how much it takes to fill that bucket, that's what determines whether or not you're going to have a migraine. So if you have all these different stressors at once, that bucket's going to overflow, the cell becomes hyperexcitable, you get a migraine. The other thing that happens is the more migraines you get, the smaller that bucket gets, or the more unstable that cell is because of all this hyperexcitability. And so you get this kind of snowball effect with these patients once they get past 4 or 5 or 6 migraines a month, where it just starts to get worse and worse and worse. All right. The other thing that's super duper important, especially for this webinar, is that each person's bucket or each person's area of the brain that is dysfunctional has a different susceptibility to stressors. Some people have a pretty even amount, right? Their neck contributes a little, they have a little bit of neurological dysfunction, their nutrition's not great, hormones, everything contributes evenly. Whereas other people, nutrition's like 80% of the bucket. So they change their diet, they feel amazing. For other people, that nutrition part may only be 20%. So they have the most perfect diet in the entire world and they still really don't see a change, right? It's not because it's not a good thing for them. It's just not the entire picture, right? That's the big deal. And part of the reason we made these products so comprehensive is so instead of trying to tackle nutrition for, ever, you're able to say, look, here's all of the things that have been shown to help with migraine. They're all in one product. So if this will take care of whatever percentage is in your bucket from the nutrition side. Now, we also recommend obviously anti-inflammatory diets, gluten, dairy free, stuff like that. But from the supplemental side, these products take care of basically everything, which is super, super, super exciting. So what we're talking about today is MGR, which is a brand new formulation of a ginger compound that's also in a fat soluble solution. And Dr. Hyatt's going to get into that a little bit more because he's kind of the mastermind behind the formulation there. But we started using ginger a while ago because of some of the research showing that it's helpful. And I'll show that to you in a second. And the problem was people would take it, and whether they had a gut dysfunction or whether it just took forever to get down into the intestines, we didn't know how effective it was. And if it was effective, it took a while to take effect. So we thought about it and we said, well, if we could get a sublingual form, we're going to be in great shape, right? Because that's going to be almost an immediate introduction into the bloodstream, and you're going to get a lot faster relief, which fortunately is what we're seeing. So here's kind of how we got here. Here's a couple papers I wanted to point out. They did a study back in 2013 where they had people to take either ginger or triptans, right? This is the first one that I thought was super exciting because they didn't know what they were taking. And the people that took triptans versus the people that took ginger, their satisfaction with how good they felt, how much the migraine was reduced, was equal after the 2 hours and after the 1 day reporting, which is amazing, right? Because triptans are kind of like the gold standard as far as medications go. Now, it's not saying that this is the end all be all, just like triptans aren't, but it's saying if we could take triptans away and just use this compound, that would be incredible. And so that's when we started using it, and we saw those types of results. The other nice thing is, obviously, you're not going to have as many adverse effects. Okay, so there's almost none, and there are actually some benefits to using the ginger. Now, the next thing we saw was that they took 400 milligrams of ginger and added it to an intravenous medication, to a ketoprofen. And they found that the addition of ginger onto that medication increased clinical responses immediately, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. So adding ginger into an existing protocol is also a beneficial thing that you can do. So if you're taking something, it's not going to hurt to take the ginger as well. Then we thought, well, I know a lot of people take ginger prophylactically, and this is when we were making MQ7. We thought, well, maybe we should put ginger in there. Well, they did a study about, well, 2 years ago now, where they looked at all of the anecdotal evidence, and then they did an actual study where they gave patients ginger 3 times a day, 200 milligrams for 3 months. And at the end of it, didn't really make a difference, right? So the way that you want to treat ginger is more the way you treat triptans or your Excedrin or whatever your abortive migraine medication is. That's how you want to treat ginger. If you take it all the time, it's not really benefiting you from the migraine side of it. There's other benefits, but if you're a migraine sufferer or your patients are, you want to make sure that they're not taking ginger as part of their preventative protocol. All right, that's really, really important. Okay. And then just last year, they finally did a systematic review and meta-analysis to see, does this ginger stuff really work? Sure enough, yes, it does. Substantially improved pain-free at 2 hours and reduced pain scores at two hours as well. No obvious adverse effects. The only good thing was the incidence of nausea and vomiting is lower in the ginger group, not surprisingly. Okay. So just last year, they said, yeah, this is something great that you guys should be adding in, especially for patients in the acute phase. All right. That's the important part of this. The MGR is a formulation for the acute phase of migraine. And most patients are familiar with taking their abortive medication the second they feel the headache coming on. You want to take ginger the exact same way. Okay. So I'm going to toss it over to Dr. Hyatt for just a minute here. He's going to tell us a little bit more about how it was developed and how this delivery method is going to differ from what you're seeing so far.
Thanks, Adam. My name is Dr. Tim Hyatt. I am a naturopathic physician. I've been in practice about 13 years and currently serving as a consultant for Precision Analytical, which does the Dutch test. And so I'm a physician consultant for them right now full time. And I'm also working, I have president and co-founder of Biogenic Nutrition, the company that sells the MQ7 and the manufactures the MQ7 and the ginger, the MGR, and also Ben Scientific, and we make some CBG hemp products. So my background basically is laboratory, and I am a medical provider. I also really enjoy doing formulation, and so for this product, the MGR, we're really excited because we have been able to take advantage of a proprietary process that we came up with to extract the CBD and CBG from the hemp. And so we've been working on that for the last couple of years and found that it's incredibly helpful in extracting and making a good quality raw product without heat extraction for the hemp and the CBD, CBG. And so we decided to try this on some different compounds. And of course, this came up with Adam. Adam talked with us about getting this ginger product. And so we said, look, we should put it through our proprietary process and see if we can't come up with a good extract. And so we've been working on this for quite some time, came up with a really beautiful extract that we're essentially taking the oils or the compounds gingerol and shogols, and many other compounds, fat soluble compounds in lower amounts. But we decided what we wanted to do was make a standardized extract, and we're using MCT oil for our base, and it's a raw process, no heat. Essentially, we take organically sourced ingredients and then do the extraction, test it through a third-party testing lab, and then get the product packaged up and ready to go. We are currently packaging that in a dropper bottle that people can use and take sublingually or orally. And I think the advantage of this product at this point, it really is the fact that you can take it either way. Sublingually, if you want very quick, rapid results, and as Adam suggested, you're going to want to take that at the very first onset of symptoms, first sign that you have symptoms show up. We have people take that, and we've seen incredible preliminary results with that. Very, very rapid change within minutes. And then, of course, you can take it orally. And I think the ginger is really great orally because there is a benefit for both the migraine and the pain-related symptoms, as well as nausea. And that's one thing that the benefit we see swallowing orally. So a person could conceivably do both. They could take a dropper sublingually, and then they could do some oral for the nausea benefit, which is often accompanied with accompanying symptom with migraine. So that essentially is how we're doing that. But I think the fact that this product is flexible and you could use it either way, and we've got it standardized and it's gone through third-party testing, I think makes this product really exciting. So it's something we're really looking forward to putting out there and offering to the public. So I think that's basically what I have to say. Adam, do you want to jump back on?
Awesome. No, that's perfect. Thank you, Tim. That's what I was looking for. And I was actually excited about it because, I don't get to see the behind the scenes as much. So I didn't realize there was no heat involved. So that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's jump in a little bit to the MQ7. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, just because, again, like Dr. Hyatt said, the exciting part is the fact that it can work so fast. But obviously, most of your patients are also like, well, I kind of don't want to have them to begin with. You got anything for that? Well, that's where the MQ7 comes in. And like I said, I had found this out by looking through all the different literature, coming up with all these different dosages. And one of the interesting things was a lot of these papers will say, hey, say you take folate, for example, if you take it in this dose, there's really no effect. But if you take it in this dose, there's a big effect. Or if you take it in this dose by itself, there's no effect. But if you take it in this dose with other compounds, then it works really well. So not only did we make sure that we had every single ingredient that we could find in MQ7, we also made sure that's in the right dosages and the right combinations that the literature supports. That's super duper important. Because one thing I found when I was looking for products to use before I came to them was that everything on the market so far has one or two of these things, or sometimes three, but a lot of times they're not in the right dosages, or they're adding things in that shouldn't be there. Like I saw one brand, it had ginger in it as one of its base compounds. Well, it's not really good evidence for that. So it was just you're kind of fighting against yourself. So when you prescribe MQ7 to your patients, you can be sure that it's evidence-based, it's backed by all the research that's currently out there. And the cool thing is, because Dr. Hyatt is a consultant and because I teach this program and update it frequently, anytime there's new literature that comes out, we're going to be adding that in and tweaking it to the formula. So it will change as needed. But so far, all the literature that's come out has just supported what we've already done, which has been really exciting. So first example of this, B1 was something that we thought we might need to put in there, but there's no correlation. So B1's not in there. Not a bad thing to take, but there's no reason to have it in there for migraine patients. B2 was an interesting one. So they found that the high dose, so the 200 milligrams, was much better, whereas the 100 milligrams, there was really no difference. So the significant difference was only in the high dose. So when it comes to B2, you have to have at least that 200 milligram dose, which is what's in the MQ7. Now it says 100 milligrams, but remember, everything that's listed on here is listed as BID. So we're expecting that patients are taking this twice a day. Now in the early stages, they will take it up to 3 times a day, and that's okay. Their longer term use is going to be at twice a day. So that's why we put everything in BID. So the riboflavin right there at the 200 milligrams per day. Folate, we kind of put together with B6 and B12 as well, because that's where it's most effective. So when you use 2 milligrams of folate with B6 and B12, the reduction of migraine can be down from 60 to 30% after 6 months, which is a great reduction. Now, change that by only 1 milligram, and they didn't really have a significant decrease, right? So just not a big difference. So this is a huge, another huge thing where somebody can say, wow, I've been taking all these B vitamins, no changes in my migraines. Well, if they didn't have the double dose of folic acid, of course it's not going to work, okay? So that's also in the MQ7. Right there, that 1 milligram. We also have the B12 in the 400 milligram that they call for, and we have the B6 in that 25 milligram that they call for. So again, exactly what they're looking for in the literature. That's what they showed here, folic acid, B6, B12, and this is also beneficial with menstrual migraine. Now, in my opinion, menstrual migraine is just on the spectrum of migraine. It tends to be a little worse just because the hormones are kind of going all over the place, and we see it to be a little worse. But it's really just hormones being a stressor on migraine. So the fact that it can help reduce that is great news. Okay, so that's that folic acid B6 B12 combo. And here's a couple more papers talking about the fact that low B12 can increase your odds of migraine. The fact that folate B6 and B12 is great for prophylaxis of migraine. So again, multiple papers to back up the exact dosages that we have in the MQ7. Now, magnesium is a common one. A lot of people will already try this. We put it in there just to make sure they don't have to keep taking a bunch of other magnesium. So this study actually showed that both oral magnesium and intravenous can be helpful for migraine. But the thing we're using it for in MQ7 is the prevention, right? So it significantly alleviated the frequency and intensity of migraine, and that's what we needed. So we put magnesium in there at a common dose. So the other one is petacites and Betabur. You've probably heard about this one. Another interesting one where they showed that the migraine attacks decreased by a maximum of 60% versus baseline, which by itself is pretty incredible, right? So you'll see products out there that pretty much just have Butterbur in it, and that's a great thing. Now, the interesting thing was another study showed that if you did 75 versus 50 versus placebo, there was a big difference. So for us, we'd rather have a 48% reduction than a 36. So we made sure that the petacites or the Butterbur is at that 75 BID. And that's what we put into the formulation. All right. So you'll see it right there. It doesn't have the dosage in our proprietary blend because it's proprietary, but I can tell you that's what's in it. The CoQ10 was another common one. They looked at 100 milligrams TID, so making sure you get 300 a day, and that had a much better reduction over placebo. So of course, we're going to put CoQ10 in MQ7. This is just another study saying the exact same thing. So right there on the right side, CoQ10 in the proprietary blend at that 300 milligram per day dose. Another one is feverfew. You may have heard about. They did a class 1 study. They found that the frequency went from almost 5 to 2, which is a great reduction. And in this one, they were doing 6.25 milligrams TID, and that reduced the attacks as well. So we made sure to put these the 6.25 TID in that feverfew extract in our proprietary blend. So again, just hammering home the fact that instead of having to go through all these papers and come up with all these different products, we're putting the exact amounts in this MQ7. Another interesting thing that I think is really important to understand is, say for B vitamins, if your B vitamin levels are perfectly normal on lab testing and you add in more B vitamins to your diet, you can help reduce migraines. It's great. If your D levels, vitamin D levels, are within normal ranges and you take more vitamin D, it doesn't reduce your migraines anymore. Okay, so the key for vitamin D is making sure you're within normal ranges and that you're not deficient. Anything like under 30, from like 20 to 30, we see a little bit of an increase, but as you get closer and closer to zero, that's where your levels start to spike up as far as frequency of migraine. So we put some D in here, but I highly recommend that you just do a simple blood test to look at your levels of vitamin D. And if they have a significant diminishment, then give them a little bit more D. But again, you don't know who that's going to be for everybody, so we don't want to put too much in there. But the point is, vitamin D deficiency independently associated with having more migraines. And this is just three more dealing with vitamin D and saying that the concentration being lower is not a great thing. Okay, so there's that vitamin D in there. And then this was just another study that came out about 2 years ago, saying that new research is showing that vitamin D, melatonin, B6, B12, folic acid, all these different combinations of feverfew, CoQ10, magnesium, all of that stuff can help with migraine. And guess what? It's all in MQ7. The only thing on there that's not is melatonin, for obvious reasons, because you're taking it throughout the day. You don't want to dose somebody up with a bunch of melatonin at 7 in the morning, right? So that is something you can add in, but not necessary. All right. And then I wanted to point out part of that proprietary blend that you'll see in there, and this is why I was really excited to work with these guys at Biogenic Nutrition, is they already have a really great formulation of neurotransmitter precursors. They use these amino acids. And that's really important because of the fact that serotonin plays such a huge part in migraine. So, for example, your triptan medications are going to target different serotonin receptors. So, the 1B, 1D, 5-HT receptors are the most common, but there are other 5-HT receptors that are targeted by the triptans. So, we have 5-HTP in the proprietary blend with in addition to some other amino acid blends. Super duper important. To migraine, and that's more of our kind of new contribution to this. Is we took everything that's already in the literature and put it into MQ7. Then, based on our understanding of the biochemistry and the pathophysiology of migraine, also have this proprietary blend of these amino acids and neurotransmitter precursors that should also reduce your chances of migraine. So again, super duper excited about all this stuff. Now, something I think is really important for you to be able to convey to patients is the fact that if you were trying to get even all of this stuff individually, it would cost a fortune. So if you go through here and look at all the different things that we have in MQ7, some of these prices are even for the lower dosage than we have in MQ7. So it might call for 300 milligrams, and this is the price for 150 milligrams. Okay, so at minimum, the least amount you could pay, and that's for crappier type, products, is about $200. On the upper end, if you got these things individually, you're talking, $280, $290, almost $300 per bottle that you would pay for this type of stuff. So not only did we make it super simple, the right dosages, everything's together, it's also at a price point that is well below what they could possibly get anywhere else. So again, that's exciting for you as well, because you can pass those savings along to your patients and get them some help. Now, the idea with the MGR and the MQ7 is you want to start patients on the MQ7 right away. Okay, and do it exactly how it says on the bottle, because you want to start out with twice a day. You're going to go to 3 times a day for a certain amount of time, and then you go back down to 2, 1, and see if they can get off of it. Because after 3, 4, 5, 6 months, maybe they can reduce their dosages. I find that most patients stay on some dosage longer term, whether it's 1 a day or 2 a day. But the point is, and what I always try to say is, I like to be on the least amount of products without a regression of symptoms. And so the idea is get them the help they need and then get them down to a sustainable dose. But if they do have migraines, which is going to happen, you have the MGR that will knock it out within a very, very, very short amount of time. And you want to let people know, hey, it is ginger, so if you put it under your tongue, it's a little burny. Mix it with a little water if you want to. That can sometimes help. Like Tim said, you can also just take it orally. Takes a little bit longer. Most of my migraine patients, they say, for what this feels like compared to the migraine, this is nothing, right? This does not bother me at all. So most patients won't have a problem with it, but just something to be aware of. Okay, so I wanted to open this up to questions, and I'll leave this available to anybody else if you guys have anything. But for joining us today, I wanted to let you know that Biogenic has graciously offered to give you 2 free bottles of MGR if you go ahead and buy a case of MGR. And honestly, this is at such a great price point because we go through a ton of different types of supplements from different companies, and for the price point and for the benefit and the speed at which this works, it's a no-brainer for patients. So you're going to fly through these if you have migraine patients. I can guarantee that. And so this will give you a couple to get started. Keep your costs down so that you can play with it until you're more comfortable with the products. If you want more information, you can go to biogenicnutrition.com. If you're not already signed up with them, you can see there's a little place for doctors, and it brings you up to this new doctor account application. They process it really, really quickly, and then you'll be able to go ahead and get your provider discount, which is substantial, as you would imagine. And then if you want more information from any of us, my book's available on Amazon. You can find us at ixneuro.com if you have more specific questions about it. But do we have any questions so far that, let's see here, that we want to go through? Let me pull this up. Okay. So if you do have a question, go ahead and you can either put your hand up or you can type it in the Q&A box, and I will get those as well. First question is, it looks like, is there any negative side effects to taking this with medications? Well, it depends what medications they're going with. I know Dr. Hyatt had mentioned that the proprietary formula does work a little bit with the dopamine pathway. So if they're on any type of anti-Parkinsonian drugs or anything like that, you may want to consult with their doctor. Besides that, not really many contraindications there, unless I'm missing anything. But based on what I've seen, that's the only one that you would want to worry about. Now, one thing I will say that's kind of interesting is as people start to feel better, they may be on, say, propranolol or some sort of heart pressure, blood pressure medication. As they feel better, they may start to feel kind of funny being on the medication. So just tell them, say, hey, as you're feeling better, if anything feels off or strange, just go back to your prescribing doctor and get that fixed up. All right. Next question is, can MQ7 be taken with food on an empty stomach? It can be taken on an empty stomach. I highly recommend to take it with food, because for some people, they do get a little bit nauseous or they feel a little off. I've had mixed results. Some people take it on an empty stomach and feel great, and others come back after 2 or 3 days and say, I can't take this anymore. I feel funny. I say, well, take it with food. And as soon as they do that, they're fine. So I always recommend, first off, go ahead and take it with food. And then if they feel comfortable or they don't get nauseous, you can take it whenever you want. Okay. Let's see here. Good. Okay. Well, I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot more questions. That's why what I would really encourage you to do is go to Biogenic Nutrition, look up both MQ7 and MGR, because we have a whole list of the sources that we use, a lot more information about all the efficacy and different ratios and all this kind of fun stuff if you really want to dive into it. So I would highly recommend that you use those resources. Like I said, please reach out to us as well. We'd be happy to answer any other questions that you have. And then once you get started with your patients, please let us know how they're doing. We'd love to hear feedback about how long it's taking them to feel better, how quickly this works, and all that kind of great stuff. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to you guys trying out this product. All right, thanks, guys.